We're making big progress with Persia. We're going to reform our economy, expand our borders through some wartime escapades, and maybe kick out some leaders who do strange things with cows. Let's jump straight in by looking to fix some inefficiencies in the market. We are producing far too much sugar. Terrible waste, terrible use of our time. So we need to try and find either a reduction in its construction or something for it to do. Like, I don't know, food industries. Can we improve our food industries so that they actually do something with all of this sweet, sweet sugar? I don't know. One thing we could do, at least temporarily, is start to export all of our sweet, sweet sugar out to the world. We may as well. We have extra of these resources, right? Let's get rid of it. That price is just ridiculous. Likewise, anything else that is too high up in our market screen that we're just not using at the moment because we don't need it or we just simply don't want it can probably go. Although the rest of these actually look totally fine. I don't mind having a little bit of extra iron capacity because we're about to chew through most of that. It's probably all these overwhelming inefficiencies that really suck. Clothes, a terrible one. This is probably impoverishing our people like there's no tomorrow. Textile mills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, we just need more of these. Let's get textile mills all over the show. For the time being, I'm also going to enact a temporary trade route with this market so that we can start importing some clothes for our people, because that inefficiency is shocking. Furniture, another basic good, and grain as well. We need to get on top of all of these as soon as we possibly can. I'll just smash a few more furniture manufactories out. I'll put these ones along the coastline because we know that there are infrastructure issues up here, and until I get the railroad, there's not a lot I can do to fix them. So for the time being, we'll do that. It will likely stay expensive for a little while. Here again, we could use our extra trade capacity to just start importing some of those. I don't want to be completely reliant on trade for all of our goods production because then we won't have much of an economy ourselves. But while these goods deficits are fairly high, I don't mind taking a little bit of action where it's needed. Grain, though, I feel like, come on, man. Come on, man. Do your own freaking grain. Like, what are you doing? We probably don't need more rice because it's producing that sugar that we don't need. But instead, I guess it's just all day wheat, all day baby. Yeah, it's going to be. And unfortunately, we're not really the best at it. But you know what? It'll have to do. We'll delete that unproductive arms trade route, and we could also follow the game's suggestion for interesting routes or that we could do. Like at the moment, loads of wood in the economy. Great to see. Furniture, not so much hardwood. See, we can get a feel here that clothes are still really bad. Tools, another industry we haven't looked at. So there's a few gaps to fill, but even just by filling some of them, we've made pretty significant inroads and what is a crazy, crazy looking balance book. A couple of our luxury items, furniture and coffee, are in high demand, and we should try and appease these populations as well. The buy orders are pretty low, to be fair. We could look to start producing some of our own luxury furniture, but I guess for the time being, because we can't really do much about this kind of thing, we'll look to import some luxury Russian furniture. And holy cow, there's our appointed bureaucrats, and my goodness, has that done crazy things to the balance book. Oh my god. Gonna have to try and fix that. But the good news is taxation capacity's increased, and some support for our groups that we like's gone up. Landowners has gone down. Probably some of the interest group diversifications, shall we say, are going to start to hurt me as well, right? Particularly if the landowners tick over to -5. But you know what? At the moment, actually, we're getting a whole load of great buffs from appeasing all of these wonderful people. So actually, all things considered, good news. And reflecting back on my target of trying to reduce the strength of the landowners, take a look at this graph, because that is a fantastic reduction in their strength. Had a little bit of an unintended consequence in bringing up the religious group. But apart from that, actually looking fairly decent. And I've got a whole load of loyal, happy people almost across the board. Slashing government wages down now that we have a whole load of expensive bureaucrats can help, but I thought I'd just lower the military wages for a bit. I'll continue to just tweak these, lowering them where I can, but I'd like to build up my reserves for a fraction, actually. So let's use some of our political capital and gain some actual budget strength out of it instead. Oh my god, look at this fun event. The Gamble. The leader of the industrialists. This young-looking chap, 35-year-old moderate, reckless political operator, but that's all right, would like to take a gamble, and we've got a 50-50 of it being a success or failure, or we can just deny it. I'm going to roll the dice. Show me what you got. 10 days. It's really not long to wait. I'm also continuing to look for potential targets. These ones are a bad idea because, of course, we can't reach them by the sea with a lack of a fleet still at the minute. How did the gamble go? A dramatic scheme by the intelligentsia in our capital has come to a disastrous end. Okay. Weaken them, force their leader to step down, or lose 15% authority. I think we'll just use this guy as a scapegoat. See ya. It's a fairly safe solution to an otherwise somewhat difficult problem. That is all good. Balance book is insanely fluctuating, but actually all good. Market access is becoming slightly problematic in these rough areas, but otherwise we're totally fine. Everything is actually looking pretty and pink in Persia. And with a war economy building up and a fairly significant military strength, 53 regulars in me and a whole load of conscripts, I feel like as we continue to push through our legislative change, we should probably start to eye up some people to fight. Here we have an event that could weaken the industrialist fraction or discourage people away from subsistence farming. And the upper strata get a little bit more radical. You know what? I think we can actually afford that. Migration attraction to Sistan. And Sistan is actually a coastal area. And at the moment, its population is like nout. Nobody really wants to live here. Which is a shame because it's potentially bordering some territories that we might look to gobble up sometime soon if they weren't in a defensive pact with each other. We might actually end our defensive pact with Afghanistan. That'll put us in a truce for 12 months, so we'll get that rolling. And we might also begin damaging relations with Kalat and improving them with Afghanistan. We'll try and separate these two apart. We'll also damage our relations with Makran. So I'm going to use, I'm going to actually probably have to try and... Oh, no, actually, we can pull all of this off. We have a whole load of influence. So let's use our political strength in the region now to try and make some friends and enemies. I'll damage relations with Oman down there as well. You're damaging. You're probably fine. Okay, so we've got a whole load of political plays that we're going to play out just to try and make sure that we have our friends and our enemies, and we're painting them into two very separate camps. Down on this territory, maybe one of my new favorite ones, where literally nobody lives, I think I'm going to encourage more people to live here. I'm going to enact a road maintenance decree for increased production, because we will build a few things. And if I had a little bit of extra authority, I might also maybe encourage either social mobility or try and pull some more people in, maybe with a greener grass campaign. In fact, I think I might do that first, actually, because we're not building all that much. Let's try and attract people over here double time. While we work on these guys and getting rid of these truces, we could actually move through Kiva to try and grab some of this stuff before the big bear in the north gets any rough ideas. I noticed that when I click on the diplomatic view for these states, they don't have any friends except for each other. Interesting. Why don't we try a cheeky vassal play? Could bring the Russians, the Sikh, or the Great Qing on board. Bringing any of those in would be terrible. So I might flirt with this idea a little bit and see what happens. We could also move through and grab Tajikistan as well, but I think for the time being, let's go for Uzbekia and see if we can vassalize it and bring it as part of the rest. We'll toy with it, see how we go. Whether the great powers will want to step in and sway this or not will determine whether I push ahead or back down, basically. I can't really sway any of them on board. However, I have been improving my relations with them. Might keep them from pushing, and it looks like it's actually going to. The diplomatic maneuver has escalated very quickly on 5 speed. They've only got their ally on board. Great news for me. Let's start to mobilize all of our generals, put a little bit of a strain on the economy. We might temporarily shift to wartime taxation just so that we can keep constructing things and fighting at the same time. It's magical and fantastic. Oh, we could almost have swayed the Russians on our side there as well, but we don't need them. And you know what? We actually really don't need them because look at that. Bukhara booked down. Neat. Okay, so we've just swept them up into our economy. We didn't even need to mobilize our generals. They got all war ready for nothing. Should we try and make it 2 for 2? Let's make it 2 for 2. We're going to push all the way through to Kokand. And if we can take Kokand, then we'll be bordering with Great Qing and stretching our mighty puppeted Persian Empire all the way to the top. Meanwhile, there's a defamatory article. Just going to ignore that. Nothing to see here, everybody. Get along with your lives. It's fine. Again, hopefully... Oh, Great Qing. Not wanting to move up. Not wanting us to move up against them. Okay. I don't think we want to start a ridiculous conflict here. Other option could be to try and pull in an ally of our own, but if the Chinese are going to come in on this fight, we'll probably back down out of that one, I would say. Yeah, not interested in that. Or some fracturing within the parties. The intelligentsia feel like they're being ripped off by the industrialists. We'll address that for them. We'll let them do that. That's fine. We're looking okay. We're a nice little yellow blob. If we actually move any closer, then there might be a bit of confusion between these yellow blobs. So a little bit of a yellow blob likes. Yikes, rather. You like yellow blobs. What we do need to do also is put through another law. Should we move away from this monarch, get rid of this landowner in charge, it's probably a big old checkmate against that, isn't it? The other one would be slave trade, but I reckon we've got our appointed bureaucrats in place. We do still have state religion. We'll probably try and weaken that at some point soon as well. But for the time being, let's change either how we vote or who we vote for. Either one we could look to change. We have about the same % chance for either of them. Of course, it will weaken me considerably, my authority, but I think it's the right move. I'm going to start by ditching the land-owning monarch who's giving a whole load of power to the landowners himself and also just through having the institution of a monarchy. This will take some time to change. The difference between presidential republic and parliamentary republic is with the presidential one we get a little bit more legitimacy from including the head of state and government. So who is the head of state matters more in a presidential republic. But with the parliamentary republic, we get reduced legitimacy penalty from the size of our government, a little bit of extra legitimacy from our overall clout. Not a huge deal. It will boost the parties in power, basically, and weaken the landowners. Which one I choose, like I say, doesn't really matter to me. I think we will go for, in this case, probably the parliamentary republic, so that we have slightly more freedom in who we put in power. Okay, as potentially feared, trying to push through the parliamentary republic law is a little bit too aggressive. It's going to surge us towards revolution. Not ideal. What I'll do instead then is try and take smaller steps towards change by slowly continuing to disempower the groups that are in charge. Moving to property woman would increase our ratio, but wouldn't really change much in terms of politics. It is then maybe that actually I might turn towards those voting laws that we were talking about earlier. I think they're probably the ones to go for, hilariously. So let's shift away from landed voting and try and get ourselves into wealth voting. This one will only frustrate the landowners as opposed to also annoying the religious group. What I'll do here is monitor against the chance of revolution. It's completely gone away now, which is great. We'll research railways, which we may not quite be ready to build, but they will be the infrastructural solution to our isolated north. So we'll get those researched at the very least, and then we'll push through wealth voting, again, to disenfranchise, but not yet completely turn this place into a presidential republic just randomly overnight. Probably a good move. Ooh. Interesting. A new political party forms. The Moderate Socialists Party. What? Okay. Interesting. All right. Government interest groups starting to form. The Moderate Socialist Party only has one group that wants to be a part of it. Trade unionists don't want a bar of it. But the landowners, they've called themselves the Moderate Socialist Party, and there they go. Take a look at the distribution of power now, though. It is now our religious group who surge to the top. I'm going to stop bolstering the PB. I should have done that a while ago. That's a bit of an oversight. And we're instead going to suppress our religious interest group. They are getting a little bit too strong now. So we're going to whack them down. We're going to stop bolstering the PB, and we're going to focus on trying to lift up these groups if we can. The Society for Progress Party are indeed the champions of change. Here, I can either try and push through wealth voting, give it a plus 20%, or we can give our favored political party plus 10% momentum. Either of these are good outcomes for me. At the moment, this party does still outrank this one, but if they brought in a friend, we'll be in a little bit of trouble. So electioneering is going to get a little bit more difficult. What do I want to do with you? Or do I want to just pass this? 24%. We're about to have another roll. This would really make a big difference politically. But you know what? I'm happy to re-roll it again, actually. Let's get momentum behind change, because if we can spur on change among the people and get the interest groups, actually, just get people kind of migrating to them naturally. Momentum building behind these groups. That will probably do us better justice in the long run than trying to lift up these ones. Interestingly, the rural folk are, of course, very powerful and popular. They hold a lot of our industry at the minute. But we now have wealth voting, so the intelligentsia and the industrials love it. Landowners have now shifted to a radicalized status. They're really angry, basically, with all of the laws and changes that we've been doing. Going to have to try and appease them, either the people who make them up, or otherwise, at the moment, we're suffering from their angry penalty, which is hurting our agriculture, ranching, and plantation income. Interesting to note. We might try and build up our industry then a little bit more, hey? I'm also going to stop bolstering the intelligentsia. I think we don't really need to do that. They're in power. I think they're fine. Kind of a waste. We could suppress the rural folk in future if we save up a little bit more authority, but if I just stop bolstering them, then I have a little bit more authority to splash down here, and so I can use it to fix our market access issue. Look at this. Laristan. Mate. Oh! Let's improve the road maintenance here, and the Moderate Socialists Party got more votes than Society for Progress. Disaster. Are we going to put them in power, though? Let's have a look. So, we could kick that party out, put the landowners in, we'll be at 55%. Interesting. Or we could put Society for Progress in, we'll be at 51%. Honestly, no big deal. I'm not reforming the government. We're going to stick with the industrializing, militarizing intelligentsia. Oh, God. We could squeeze the rural folk in there too if we wanted to. It will change support for a few different things, but if I scroll down the bottom here, we'll see it'll shift us to... nah, I think we'll leave them out. We're fine where we are. My next political masterstroke is going to be to remove some power from the religious group who are currently getting power through our education system. An education system that I can't yet change. But that's all right, because we're going to try, if we can, to remove state religion. Moving to freedom of conscience will give us extra authority. It will give extra political strength to the religious group, church and state. Yeah, or we could go total separation for our church and state laws. This will basically just make sure that they are no longer getting the whopping 30% boost that they are at the minute. So it's kind of a sliding scale, right? I can take power and away from them completely and lose some authority, or find a middle ground. It's a difficult one to push through, but we're going to try and do it. Let's try and go for total separation of church and state and smack some power out of the group, which is now actually the strongest group in the land. My budget is looking really fantastic, so we're going to now increase wages for the intelligentsia and the armed forces. These are, of course, hilariously, two groups inside of our government, so we're using government wages to make our government more happy so that more people vote for them and they get a higher proportion of the vote because they'll have more money in their back pockets. It's the industrialists that are falling a little bit, though, as people move to the intelligentsia with that shift. Look at that. Intelligentsia now making a play for, in fact, they are officially the second largest group as railways are unlocked. Fantastic. Damn, the industrialists losing clout like there's no tomorrow as the industrialists take it off them with a rise in wages. That's really fascinating to see just how much of an impact that has had. Incredible, actually. As soon as we want to help out our nerd friends, I could also consider, generally wouldn't do this, but could consider changing a few other things like government administration, swap them over to filing cabinets. We might as well. It'll give us a nice boost to capacity. It'll put the price of paper up, but of course, we know how to fix that, don't we? So let's improve government administration, putting extra demand on paper. Keep that in the back of our minds. Other things that we could also shift, I mean, we still need to build extra farms, so there's probably never really a bad time to do this. We could also put fertilizer throughout our wheat farms. That would help our grain production quite a bit. Let's do that, and then address these extra demands as they start to pick up. What we're doing, of course, is kind of boosting the overall productivity of our economy in loads of interesting ways by moving up through the supply chains. We might temporarily have to bring some trade routes in because you'll notice that the surging price of, in particular, of paper and wood is putting huge pressure on the economy. I will start to bring it down, but temporarily, let's address it by getting some Chinese paper imported. And even though wood is also coming down, we should probably look at this. Level 15 trade route out of Russia. Let's pump wood into the economy through that. That should fix most of the problems. I will keep an eye on this paper access, though, because we might actually also need to get, like, British paper or something in as well, just to smash that down. Otherwise, these prices are going to go absolutely bonkers. Trade route importing clothes isn't productive. That's fine. You can see I'm starting to reduce the damage here as we change over production methods to slightly better ones. But it is proving pretty difficult. I mean, look at this. Even the paper is challenging. We don't really have any extra routes to improve that. The difficulty is going to be convoys. I won't be able to expand my trade without convoys. So there's some extra pressure as well to maybe shift this to a cargo port. This will provide way more infrastructure and convoys and use up some clippers. That's actually a really good idea. So let's convert our existing ports to convoy ports. I think we already have loads of clippers in the economy. See, the price is like nothing because we're building them and not using them. So it'll add extra efficiency and hopefully give us the extra convoys that we need to try and support some extra trade. We could also look to maybe build an additional port like down here as well to try and increase the infrastructure down here. A reasonable idea, actually, across the board here. So let's do that. We're so embarrassingly short on paper. Our bureaucrats have nothing to write on. But it's fine. Okay, we could get -3 on our favorite intelligentsias to push this through, or not compromise. Let's take the -3 hit and see if we can push through the separation. It's going to put a lot of strain on our economy. I'll have to reduce their wages a little bit. But we will keep constructing to try and meet these demands. You can see we've got paper mills and ports coming online to fix our trade and to fix our domestic paper supply. Hopefully, that will be the double whammy that we need to try and fix some of these issues. You can see the economy is fluctuating pretty wildly, but starting to stabilize here a bit. It's looking all right. Opium, super expensive in our market. Oh boy, I've been waiting for demand there to tick up. Let's start farming some more of this stuff then. You know you want to. Oh, and also, just as I spam down some more opium farms, we have a fairly interesting event where we can get assimilation increased, radicals increased, and plus 10% on Armenian pops radicalism. Or we can say, you know what? Their language is part of their heritage. Give us some intelligentsia support back. Looks good to me. Let's do that. We needed a bit of support with them, so 2 birds with 1 stone. I like it. Instantly, some of these trade routes are becoming unproductive. That's probably good news for me, although I reckon if we go to the market details screen, we'll see some unsightly things. Or actually some export earnings potential here. Luxury clothes. Who wants some fine Persian luxury clothes? The British and the Russians do. Let's sell some luxury clothes to Russia. Love it. In terms of normal goods, it looks to me like it's clothing, paper, furniture, generally the ones that we need to fix. We'll need more and more clothing, of course, as we go, and we need loads of textile mills. So let's put a few of these, particularly around these port areas where we're improving infrastructure. And now that we have railroads, we could also look to get a railway line up to Tabriz, and then we can start to expand that sector further as well. Good news is we have total separation. This has, upset some people. That's okay. It'll become politically quite expensive to maintain our state. We'll have to really keep in mind that, and I might look to balance a few of these deficits moving forward as well. I think we can save a lot of authority by stopping the suppression of the religious group. They've moved well down. It is the landowners who are easily the biggest threat. But for the time being, I don't really have the authority spare. So we'll look to maybe make some legal action against them instead. The State or Society of Progress Party still well and truly in charge. Let's try and implement the National Guard as part of our law. This will help our armed forces a little bit. It will hurt the intelligentsia, though. The other way that we could help here is by shifting to professional army as well. Would radicalize the trade unionists and the rural folk. So making these changes is going to have a fairly significant impact. We have to be aware there's already quite a bit of radicalism going on as we shift the country around. But you know what? The intelligentsia are already massively in love with us. We can get away with this. We can please the PB as well. Let's try and enact a National Guard now. My authority is becoming a big issue because I'm needing to enact a lot of these road maintenance things. So what I'm going to try and do is leverage the tech tree. We'd go for nationalism, power of the purse unlocked. Not actually really a huge goal, but you can see working well on nationalism. Once I get this unlocked, we'll get plus 10% authority, which is really good because it'll probably get me out of this red. And then I'll probably look to actually add in a couple of consumption taxes. Oi! Here's the National Guard too. The intelligentsia are not so happy about it, but the armed forces love it. And it will actually remove one of the things that was really limiting the political support on the armed forces. So nice to have that little change as well. I think if we go to the politics screen and then government, we can hover over them. Yes, indeedy. And the laws, or the different laws that impact these interest groups, can be seen here on these tooltips, if you didn't know. So you can kind of see like, okay, let's see, plus 5% from their leader, or here we have plus 25% from appointed bureaucrats. So if we want to weaken these guys, we need to get rid of slave trade, monarchy, or one of our generals who is giving them 2%. We could actually get rid of Tahir, the general, fairly easily. Let's retire him. He's 65 anyway. Thanks for your service, Tahir. Greatly appreciate ya. Right? Gone. See ya. In his place, we could look to recruit someone from a political party that we like. Unfortunately, these are all landowning ones. And I don't actually know if the game re-rolls it when you... No, I don't think it does. So I wonder if I have to then recruit, immediately retire, and then try again? Is that... I don't know if that's how you even do that. At the minute, we're just going to go with our one guy. And he's part of the religious group. Jeez, we are unlucky. Can we get some leaders, please? Look, you know what? Totally fine. For the time being, we're not at conflict. Not an active conflict. So we can probably afford to ignore it. We're actually producing a little bit too much wood. So I could either export some to make a bit of extra cash, or we could look to mess with the economy even further and dance with death by changing something in one of our supply lines. Logging camps are still on softwood production. We could shift them to hardwood. That would cause the price of wood to increase. Hardwood would just dive. We could then export it if we wanted to. It's iffy. It's iffy. I think what we'll do is we'll, weirdly, because I've built up that industry so massively, either need to build a larger construction sector around it, shift what it's producing and export it, or decrease it. I think I will shift to hardwood production. It'll hurt us a little bit. It will really mess with wood. Let's actually have a look, see if we can watch it in real time. And we're going to hurt our budget a little bit here, though. I might, while that's going, just quickly pause that construction, just so it doesn't completely run me bankrupt, while I check in on a couple of extra little details around the edges. Like, if we get that hardwood, what is it actually going to do? Let's see. So producing 211, obviously we only need 60. The price is way too low. So what I could then do is establish either an export route or find something to build with it. Maybe, for example, some of our furniture, we might want to upgrade something in the furniture supply chain or some other supply chain. Let's have a look. Hardwood, expand furniture manufactories, or shipyards, arms industries, war machine industries, plus aeroplanes. Probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves there, but that's fine. Let's move then maybe to, I think probably the furniture industry is going to be our best bet, which is actually struggling a little bit at the moment to keep up with demand, which is not ideal. Okay, this industry absolutely needs some loving. Firstly, let's get away from handcrafted furniture and shift towards a more tools and wood-based consumption with mechanized workshops. This will use up all of that extra wood, so I think we'll shift actually to doing that instead. We could also be a little bit cheeky and shift up to either precision tools or luxury furniture. Now, that will put some demand on hardwood, which is actually really what we want. It'll surge the price up, though. We'll go from having too much to not enough. So we have to be really careful in the different things that I'm going to change here. Going from handcrafted furniture to mechanized workshops will produce 455 extra furnitures at the cost of some additional inputs. I think I'm fine with that. Then when we shift to maybe luxury production, we'll produce some luxury furniture as well as standard furniture and use hardwood as well as wood. Precision tools puts that demand even higher, but I like it because it uses... it's a tricky one. I think we'll go luxury furniture because it doesn't use tools, and this will hopefully provide the perfect amount of extra balance to our furniture industry, and then, icing on the cake, we'll expand it into regions where we're not already struggling with infrastructure. Speaking of struggling with infrastructure, I think it's probably time that we build some railroads, because man alive, do we need them? Let's feed extra support into the intelligentsia. They're going to rise above the industrialists. Not necessarily something that I planned, but you know what? It's good enough. And as you can see, we're going to start to build some railroad. Is it going to be insanely expensive? Probably. But we really need to improve market access. So let's get it, particularly in these 80s. Like Tabriz should be the first one, really. But let's get a railroad across the board and connect most of the country. It's going to be ludicrously expensive. I'm not sure if we can yet afford it. If we go to the construction screen and then resume construction, 23 weeks in that territory. Honestly, actually, that's not bad at all. Let's get the Tabriz one up to the top because that was really low on infrastructure. And also, I think the one after it was too. Let's improve these, improve our infrastructure, and then hopefully improve our tax collection, quality of life, all of that kind of thing. Unlocking the railroads as well, of course, gives us some pretty interesting development upgrades we can do. Could change it to being government run if we want to. Take some power away from the capitalists, give it to the bureaucrats. But also you'll see that we can do like passenger trains, for example. Eventually even get some real flash ones. However, newsflash, the economy is all of a sudden doing very well. Nice to see it. And we've had an election! And it's the Society for Progress, who of course have come out on top. The moderate Socialist Party has now picked up the religious group. So we see some really clear divisions forming now. We have the two ousted groups who actually have quite a bit of power. And then we have our main political party, the Society for Progress, and then the moderate socialists. Odd. Obviously, I don't think we're going to push any reform through here. Put an extra loyal crony in the mix to try and shift the balance of power. But already we kind of have too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's messing with us just a fraction. This wouldn't really help us get anything much extra through. We'll leave them out, I think. And now that they are yet again newly formed, welcome. Yep, you're still in power. Nice. We'll push through some slightly more aggressive reform with them as well now, I think. We've stabilized radicalism. It's actually relatively low. It's about 200k lower than it was a little while ago. Can we free the slaves and really crack those landowners? Maybe. We've actually got a better chance at shifting ourselves towards either a parliamentary or presidential republic again, though, apparently. We have to be careful about who opposes this, though, because you'll notice that if both groups in opposition with all of that power oppose it, we're really going to be pushing ourselves towards revolution. So I think even though the chance is relatively high, it's probably still too soon. Let's move instead to push away from religious schools and towards private schools. This will, of course, weaken one of those groups that opposes us. Our government will push through private schools, no problem. A great, small, gradual change to help shift the politics of our nation. We're building railways, and it's improving access, and everybody's lives are getting so much better as a result. It's so good to see. Holy crap, it's good to see. Yeah, that's amazing. We're going to need another one up in Tabriz by the looks, and everywhere else seems to be okay. But if we pump that place full of those, we should be totally fine. Our economy is now really churning along nicely, which probably means I can offer a little bit of tax respite to the people. Nearly can lower our taxation rate down. This will, of course, help reduce that standard of living decay and generally make the lives of people a bit better. Also, helping us to stave off revolution and putting more money into people's pockets. I might also look to boost up our government wages a bit soon, but for now, I think their approval and spending is probably about right. Now that we're shifting to the railway, though, of course, we're going to have some new shortages as we begin to industrialize the Persian Empire. I think, though, I will pause for a minute here and end this episode. Thank you so much for watching. As I end, though, I'm going to just take a quick look around to the rest of the world. I see Prussia has formed the North German Federation. Very cool. Naturally, they'll do that, of course, but interesting to see the great powers in Europe start to sort of fracture or merge, actually, in that case. And otherwise, everything looks fairly standard. New South Wales, chonky F, taking over a lot of New Zealand. Brazil winning most of its wars. Canada forming, I guess not too quickly, but Canada forming. We're looking good. I'm pretty happy. We've expanded Greater Persia, and next time we will industrialize and make maybe some even greater pushes. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.